Back to basics, the perfect DE shave today on BarberDave's Shaves and Such. And hold on and buckle up, Sally. It's going to be a long one. Hey everybody, welcome to Sunday. As the disclaimer said, this is my method for the perfect DE shave. It's not to say it's the only method, but obviously I'm doing this for one of our subscribers that asked me to do that. So obviously there's a recognition that I've been around in this game a long time and I kind of know what the hell I'm doing. So that's what we're going to go through. And I'm going to take you through step by step what I do. Now, before we go any further, the first thing you need to do, because we all know of across the grain, against the grain, across the grain, but how do you determine that? The only way to determine that is by mapping your beard. Now, my suggestion is when you map your beard, you break it up into quadrants. What I do is I've got 6 quadrants, I think. Yes, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, can the whisker growth be different in all 6 of those quadrants? Absolutely. So what I suggest you do is be a hobo for 2 days. Let the beard grow in a little bit. Now, I didn't do that, obviously. But what you want to do is you want to take close-up pictures, if you can, with your phone of all 7 quadrants and then study those. A quick way you can also do it is take a thick business card or a credit card and do this. Now, if you notice, that's very smooth sounding. So that's telling me, but see, I'm getting some scritchiness there. So my width of grain in these 2 quadrants may be this way and this way, but not necessarily on my lip or my chin. Then, so that tells me that that's actually my across the grain because that's the loudest. And then here, this is my against the grain this way. And my across the grain is actually this way, believe it or not. So that's a good way. Listen to the whiskers and then also take close-up pictures of all 6 quadrants and figure out which way your whiskers grow. That is going to determine your with the grain, your across the grain, and your against the grain if you decide that you want to do that. Some guys do a 1-pass shave and they're off to the races. Some guys do 2 passes and off the races. Some people like me are BBS chasers and we'll do 3 passes whether we've shaved 2 hours ago or not because we enjoy it. So use that and use a thick business card or a credit card to do that. But before you do anything else, you got to map your beard because if you don't know which way your whisker growth is, then you're going to be doing the strokes wrong and you're going to set yourself up for ingrown hairs. You're going to set yourself up for irritation and so forth. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is the foundation for your shave. And the foundation for your shave is your lather. Take the time to do the lather right. Now, today I'm doing kind of an old school product that everybody can get. Now, I'm not going to get into the debate between Badger and synthetic because with synthetics, you don't even have to soak them. However, my process, just so you know what mine is I take my A&W root beer mug that I had when I was a kid, I fill it with water, and that I should note at this point, whether you want to shave with warm water or cold water is completely entirely up to you. I have been shaving with warm water because of the outside temps, but I'm going to shave with cold water today to illustrate a point. When you put warm water on your face, you've got tons and tons of capillaries, and those capillaries will swell when you put heat to it, obviously. But that also means that you've got blood closer to the skin, and if your technique is off, you're setting yourself up for irritation. So if you find that you've been shaving with warm water and you're getting irritation constantly, switch to cold water. Yeah, it's not as comfortable, but you'll find that the shaves are better. Usually I switch over around March to cold water all the way through October. But our cold water here, Arizona. So anyhow, do you need to soak synthetic? No. But habit, I just do it. So then I wring out most of the water. Okay, so it's damp. Then what I do with my soap, and I'm using CBL Barba today simply because it's a very easy soap to lather. And I'll float about a teaspoon or 2 on the top of the puck, but I pour that water off. And there's a reason for that, and I'll show that for you in a minute. Then I'll take, now I face lather the majority of the time. Doesn't matter whether you want to face lather, whether you want to bowl lather. The key is incorporating the right amount of air, the right amount of water, whether it's in the bowl or whether it's in the face, to create three things: cushion, glide, and slickness. Those three things are going to determine primarily how good your shave is, because you can make a mistake in technique, but if your lather is in good shape, you can kind of make up for it. So what I do is I just take the puck and I start loading. Now, some people are very miserly in their loading. I'm not. It's soap. I load very heavy. Now, what I do is I'll smash the brush in. Some people will turn it upside down. I don't care. You do what you want there. But incorporate the right amount of air. So do these plunging techniques. That's going to get air into the brush and air into the lather. Now, I don't add any water at this point because I'm doing a proto lather. Now this, I should say also, this is a vegan soap by CBL Soaps. This is called Barba, and it's just a wonderful barbershop scent. But you want to go ahead and make sure you load this thing heavy. Don't be miserly in your soap. So there's my load, my initial load, and then I've got all this. So I will take that and I will incorporate that into the brush and rinse my hands off. So that's the basic lathering. Okay, and you want your face to be slick because, let's face it, the cushion is what your razor is going to be right up against your face. The glide is how easy that razor glides. And then, of course, the slickness, how slick is it? That's going to assist the glide part of it. So you want your face to be very, very well hydrated. So some guys take a shower after your shave. I'm not a proponent of that. I think that getting a good hot shower, cleansing your face with a very, very good facial cleanser is going to get your sebaceous glands ready for the next step. Now, when you get out, I use the bloom water. Remember I said I poured the bloom water in the sink? I use that as almost a pre-shave. And I'll get the face reasonably wet, not soaking wet. And this is a cold water shave today. And then I will begin to lather. Now this is the proto lather. And as I said, this was requested by a subscriber because he was having some issues with straight razor shaving. So I figured I'd do a DE shave, because the DE, how you shave with a DE will set you up for how you're going to shave with a straight razor. That's why I'm doing this. Plus, if you're a DE razor shaver, and this helps you. So once I do the initial lathering on the face with the proto lather, now I'm pushing this lather in. And you see how kind of thick that is? We're not even close to being done yet. Then what I'll do is, there's two methods. You can either take water from your fingers and drip it into the brush. A lot of people do that method. I actually just dip the tips in the basin, and I'll just lightly incorporate the water in. So I'm actually dipping it 3 times for these 3 quadrants of the face. And then I'll incorporate that. Now, if you bowl lather, you may go straight to the paintbrush, but make sure you do these initial steps, even if you bowl lather, because that's going to give you that glide, cushion, and slickness. Now, this is actually pretty good right here, but also what you want to do is, after you do the paintbrush strokes, if you are going to add a little bit more water, open the brush up on your chin, and then however you want to do it, and I'll do it this time by adding water, and you just let it drip off your fingers. Then I'll go to the face, and I'll incorporate it. And you'll have to find out with whatever soap you're using what the breaking point is. In other words, at what point is there too much water? And you'll know. So then again, I will incorporate this. Now, at the end of the shave, you're going to see, God, he's got so much lather. Okay, so one thing that is a marker for me to know when the lather is correct is when I do the paintbrush strokes at the end, after I feel the water and the air all incorporated, and I hear this. Hardly any sound whatsoever. That tells me that the cushion is there. Now, we don't know about the glide yet until we actually start shaving. But you can see that this is a voluminous lather. And it's not a show lather. I mean, anybody can get a shiny show lather. Mine is for performance. Okay, so then, you'll clean up your area. But you don't want the lather to be thick and tacky. You want it to feel light on your face, and you want it to feel wet. Okay, so for the razor, let's talk about that. I am using a Gillette Tech. You can find these anywhere. It's one of the most basic safety razors you can find. As far as blades, you'll have to do your own research there. I have found with all the blades I've tried, and I've tried most of them, that the Persona Lab Blue works well for my face. The Astras may work well for you. The Wizamits may work well. The Voscods may work well. You'll have to make that determination, so you'll just have to experiment. Now, this is where I go off the rails a little bit. A lot of people will say, okay, you're shaving with a DE, you need to stretch your skin. I don't think so. Because if you look at most standard cartridge razors, now this is a 2-bladed one, okay, but most of the Gillette razors now that have 5 blades on them, here's the little secret that nobody wants to tell you about. All 5 of those blades are not sharpened and honed the same way. The first blade grabs the whisker, the second blade stretches the whisker out, the third blade stretches it even further, the 5th blade cuts the razor, and the hair snaps back because there is elasticity in your whisker and your regular hair. And when it snaps back, it goes below the follicular whole line. Well, the whisker does not have a brain. So when it starts trying to grow out, it's trying to find the least passive resistance. And sometimes it'll start curling in on itself. And when that happens, what do you have? You have an ingrown hair, you have irritation. Besides, you're stretching, plus you're putting that on there, you're putting too much surface area. Because remember, when you're DE shaving, the best shave you can get is when the whisker is just at the skin line. That way it grows evenly, you don't have irritation, you don't have ingrown hairs. Now, all of us get them, okay? So I don't believe in stretching because right on the front of this razor, there is a safety bar. That safety bar is for 2 purposes. One, so your face does not contact the gap between the razor and the razor blade, thus possibly causing a cut, hence the term safety razor. But what it also does is it pre-stretches the skin. So it's a redundancy that you don't need for a DE shave. Now, that does not apply to a straight razor, which part 2 of this series will be tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about straight razors. So, also, the angle of attack. Most people say, oh, you got to be 30 degrees, 45 degrees. Here's the easiest way to do it, because your face is not perfect, okay? So, take the razor at your sideburn line, because that's where most people start. Take the razor horizontally. Put it up against your face. Do light, and see if, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's no sound. Or it's just metal on my face. Then start tilting your shoulder, because you want to try to lock this as much as possible and use your shoulder as a fulcrum, because that's going to give you the smoothest, most consistent shape. But start rotating the razor until you feel it grab onto the whiskers. There's your angle, and which just happens to be around 30 degrees. So that's the angle you're going to shave at. The other thing I see people do is they hold the razor like this. This is all you need. Now, you can put a 3rd finger on there if you like, 2 fingers, and find the hilt, just like a knife or a sword, and find your pivot point, and just use 2 or 3 fingers and your thumb, very light. So find your angle, and then go ahead and continue. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do my with the grain and across the grain the way normal would be. Okay, so you basically just come straight down, and you don't need a lot of pressure. Let the razor do the work for you. Now, a lot of people will say do 1 stroke and that prevents irritation. I don't believe in that. I do overlapping strokes of about 1 inch. And as far as stretching is concerned, just blow your face up. That's going to be all the stretching you need to get that whisker down to the skin level. Now, if you also notice that I'm using this kind of motion, okay, so I'm not using this. Now, there are times when you break the wrist, like for instance, when you're coming down the chin and you rotate around, all you have to do is lower your elbow. So that locks the razor in. So again, now this is my with the grain pass. Now, normally, my against the grain pass is different. And those of you that have seen me do DE shaves will notice that. Now, also, you'll notice that I shave with a DE with one hand, my dominant hand, my left hand. With a straight razor, and we'll go into that tomorrow, I really strongly suggest learning how to shave with both hands, and we'll explain that tomorrow. So normally, my with the grain starts this way and goes this way, but for a majority of people, it does here. So again, I'm only holding it with 3 fingers, lightly. And just use your chin and your face to stretch your skin. You don't need to use your hand, except in one instance, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. Now, it's funny, I do switch hands. Sometimes I do this, but it's easier, especially if you've got a locked wrist, to just take your shoulder and just bring it down. And then, of course, on your lip, you can, stretch, blow up, whatever's good for you. Now, one thing to also be careful about, a lot of safety razors, I don't know if you can see this, a lot of safety razors, the blade will hang out a little bit further. That becomes a real problem when you're doing cleanup or if you try to switch directions, because if that part of the blade contacts your skin, it will slice you, even though it's not sharp. Okay. First pass was good. I do notice, because of my beard mapping, that I kind of changed the way I was doing it. Now, also another way to find out how good the soap is feel your face after you've rinsed it a little bit. That incorporation of water and residual slickness will kind of give you another indication on how good the soap is. Now, how you do your second and third pass lather is up to you. I usually, will brush the soap in on my first pass and my last pass, and then use paintbrush strokes for my last. But if you can see, it's still very wet, very thick, and I've got plenty of cushion. I hardly didn't feel the blade on my skin. Okay, so normally this is my against the grain pass, believe it or not. So I switch it up. I go with the grain, against the grain, across the grain. Normal, and your beard mapping will determine what that is. But for me, this is my against the grain. So, but I'm gonna, for purposes of this tutorial, this will be normal, most people's across the grain. And again, I'm doing overlapping strokes, blowing up my face when needed, but I'm not doing any stretching other than what my facial muscles are, because you don't need to. And then using your tongue, of course, in the gum area and stuff like that. And then I'll come across this way. Now, I already know, because of what's called a whorl. Everybody has them. In fact, on your head, you have a whorl, because that's where your hair grows out, and that's where your part will start if you wear a part on your hair. But I know I have a whorl here, and I have a whorl there. So I will have to come back to that during cleanup. And again, as far as how many passes you want to do, that's up to you. I know some people, instead of going ear to chin, they go nose to ear. Again, all of it is very dependent on how you map your beard. That's why it is so important. So as I said, normally this is my against the grain pass, but we're assuming that the majority of people, this is their across the grain. And especially with these type of razors that have that overhang, when you're doing your nostril area, be real careful, because that's going to be very close to your nostril, and that will cut you. Now, I will rotate my wrist this way when I do my lip area, but most of the time I'm keeping this pretty strong. And the reason for that is, as a barber, we have to keep good ergonomics or we can actually injure ourselves. So again, I'm feeling around, seeing where the whiskers are at. And this is also another way to determine your beard mapping too, is it's going to take a while, and take your time. But I know I have 3 areas in quadrant 1. Actually, this is quadrant 6, and then quadrant 2 and 3 that I have issues with the way my hair grows, and we'll go into that. And I can tell that it's worse than normal because of the way I'm shaving. Because I will adjust this way if you guys have watched the channel before. Now, what I notice with me, and I face lather the majority of the time, my final lather, and this is pulling the soap out of the depths of the brush. Now, this is a synthetic. I will add a little bit more water just to make it a little slicker for the final pass. Now, for tomorrow, I'm going to be using the same soap, same aftershave, same everything for the straight razor tutorial. Just to give an idea, I may change the consistency of the soap just a little bit, but not much. Okay, so now the only time you'll see me actually stretching my skin per se, I'm not really stretching the skin. I'm just grabbing beneath, just beneath the sternal notch right here, and I'm pulling down. At the same time, I'm stretching my skin just by moving my jaw and my chin. And again, if you're not used to the angle of the blade, do the same thing. Put it up against the skin like this, and then rotate it. Now, this is the only time that I changed the grip. And like I said, this grip is really light. What I'll do is I'll move down to the end, and I'll use a kind of like if I'm holding a pencil. And let the razor glide over the bumps and crannies and stuff like that. Don't try to force it. Like when you get to the jawline, don't try to force it over the jawline. Just use your fingers very loosely and let it make its own way. You're going to find that you get a much better shave that way. And you always want to, you've got 2 sides of the razor, but you also want to rinse. Now, again, when you're in the ear area, keep an eye on that section, because if you get too close, you're going to slice yourself right up. So the only stretching I'm doing, like I said, is just blowing my cheek up. So use your facial muscles instead of your hand to do the stretching with a DE shave. You'll find that you get less irritation and you'll have a much nicer shave. Again, this is my opinion. And I believe that the overlapping strokes, although they may not be as efficient as just one stroke, it gives you a much better shave. Now, as far as the fool's pass is concerned, that's entirely up to you. I would say wait until you're very experienced to do it, because as most of you know, a couple weeks ago, I didn't pay attention. I cut my lip pretty bad. But what I do is I'll clear the lip area, blow up my lip like that, and then again, I'll engage the blade, and then when I get there, then I'll start. Okay, let's see how we did. Perfect on quadrant 1, perfect on quadrant 2. Quadrant 6, again, right here, I got a little bit. And actually, this time was pretty close on quadrant 2 and 3, around 3 and 4. But now, this is slick enough, and you know that you got the soap right if it's slick enough that you don't even need any. The residual slickness is so nice that you can do that. However, I don't recommend it. Just go ahead and put some lather on. You've got a ton of it. I mean, there's a bunch. I mean, you could shave 4 more times. So go ahead and put the lather on. Now, when you're doing cleanup, these are kind of advanced techniques, but make sure that the razor that you have, you know where this is at. So I know for a fact that on my face, because of my mapping, this grows kind of like this. So I have to come in upside down. This is when I'll stretch the skin. and I'll do some buffing in the direction against the grain that growth is. And keep a little bit of lather on your finger. That way you can get it. Now I did miss a spot right here. So I'll just come and catch that. Same thing here. This grows this way. And you can hear that. Okay, and then here, I have a whorl right here. So what I do is I'll do some buffing. Now with this blade, normally you've heard of J-hooking. If you're going to do that, be real careful because you can slice yourself. So I very rarely do that with this type of razor. Now if it's got a closed blade section, then I'll do that. Okay, let's see how we did. Beautiful. 3 passes, dolphin smooth, and I check over. You know, and a lot of people saying, Dave, you're taking way too much time for a shave. Well, you know, it's a hobby. You do what you want. It's your shave. But I'm just to show that subscriber some of the techniques that will work. As far as post-shave concerned, that is entirely up to you. I used to rinse my face, put on aftershave, out the door. But I started noticing as I've gotten older, because I'm going to be 60 next month, that a little bit more facial care was in order, so I started using more stuff. So I'll rinse my face with the water I have in the basin, which means there's still some soap in it, and then I'll wet the alum block. And I like alum blocks for one reason. They are antiseptic because you are abrading the skin. And I use these in the shop a lot because obviously when you're shaving a client, you can't feel what they're feeling. You can try to have as much tactile feel as possible when you're giving somebody a shave, but my go-to is alum because when I put alum on their skin after the shave, I ask for their feedback. Is it stinging real heavy? Is it stinging light? And that tells me how to adjust for that individual client's face the next time they come in for a straight razor shave. Or I do have a couple of people that come in for DE shaves. Those folks that may have some motor issues and stuff like that, we don't use a straight razor. Now, I'll let that percolate for a while because I want that antiseptic to really get in. And there was no burn, by the way, with that. And really, you know, you should get a little bit of feedback from the alum. Maybe not a ton, but you should have some. You should have some because that way you know you've gotten close enough. And then what I'll do is I'll let that dry out, not dry out, but just percolate a bit, and then I'll go ahead and rinse with cold water. Now, if you've shaved with all cold water, then you're fine. I have not shaved with cold water till this shave in months, and I forgot how nice a cold water shave is. In fact, this could get me to convert to cold water shaves all the time, which I normally do. So once I rinse off, and again, we're talking about the perfect DE shave, I'll go over it again to see if I missed anything. If I missed anything, I let it go. No reason to irritate the skin again. You know, just let it go and work for tomorrow. So again, using a DE shave, no need to stretch. This is a Gillette Tech, very, very mild shaver, but this is what most shaving heads are fashioned like. It's not as aggressive as some, but just to show, very easy. The brush was a synthetic today. Tomorrow we'll use the same thing just so we have consistency. Get yourself a good soap. You may have to try. I strongly recommend CBL. I think his soaps are easy to lather and just wonderful for the face. Okay, so after I let that dry down a little bit, then I'll move on to the witch hazel. Now, all of these components make for a better shave. Anything you can do to heal your skin is good. Especially if you are one of those guys that uses cartridge razors. Now, I'm not going to bang on you for using the cartridge. I think you're having a miserable shaving experience. But there's a reason why these DEs are the way they are. One blade. Because if your techniques is correct, you're going to be fine. Those 5-bladed razors, you're going to have problems. And I guarantee you're going to have irritation and you're going to have ingrown hairs. And it's going to be a miserable shaving experience. And that's what I see. Most guys hate shaving. Why? Because of what they've been sold by Big G. And it's sad because this is Big G, and this is the way it should be. Okay, so again, I do recommend using witch hazel. There's a couple of different ones you can use. There's Quinn's, there's Thayer's, which I like. There's also Humphreys. There's a whole bunch. But find one in a fragrance or non-fragrance, or you can make your own. You can make your own witch hazel and use it because it is good for the skin, and it does have some healing properties and so forth. Okay, then, of course, aftershave. Now, a lot of guys will use aftershave, and that's it. I use aftershave and either a cologne, a parfum, or anything nice, and talc, and we'll go over that in a minute. We're going to use Aqua Velva. Again, you can get this anywhere. It is old school. It's got a wonderful feeling on the face. And it's just, it starts the day. And again, I'm feeling the skin again to see if I missed anything. Because being somewhat competitive, I like to make sure that I'm giving myself the best shave, especially if I'm wasting a half an hour to do this. Because I think we're about 32 minutes in right now. Now that's obviously, this is a 12-minute shave for me, but to show you what we were doing. So put the aftershave on and let that dry down a little bit. And then, of course, a lot of guys don't do this. I recommend it because I am a barber, and I do this because this finishes up the shave, in my opinion. Leaves the skin feeling smooth. If you're in a warm weather climate, it prevents what I call burrito face, which means a lot of oil, because your face is healing. And when it heals, the sebaceous glands are going to put out some oil to protect your skin. Well, if you're in a hot weather climate, you're going to end up having shiny face. You know, you'll laugh when women go to the bathroom to powder their nose. That's what they're doing. They're going to get the oil and to leave their skin feeling kind of silky smooth. And that's what talc does. And your barber uses it for a reason. It's not just fluff, but it makes your face more of a matte finish, but it also gives you that feel of just smoothness. And then finally, I do an EDP or an EDT. We're using the GOAT today. We're using Yves Saint Laurent. God. Anyhow, let me get my glasses on so I can say it. Rive Gauche Bourgogne. And this is the quintessential GOAT as far as barbershop scents, in my opinion. There's not too much left. And what I'll do is I'll spray wrist, crick of the elbow, wrist, crick of the elbow, and I don't do anything with that. Then I'll make one spray here, or maybe two. And then I take my finger and I will go along the temple line with dots. And that will keep you smelling great all day because you're the one smelling it, but it won't explode it to the rest of the world. But then again, I don't give a shit, to be honest with you. If somebody doesn't want to smell me, then they can walk away. Anyhow, so for the one subscriber, to protect their privacy, I'm not saying it, I'll just call him S. I hope that helped you as far as the DE portion. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing the straight razor portion of this quick back to basics, but I can say that was the perfect DE shave. I look forward to your comments. Now, remember, this is the way I do it and the way I teach it, but I think it's pretty head on. But I'm open to your comments, and please let me know. Anyhow, I'm Barber Dave. This has been Barber Dave Shaves and Such, and we will see you again tomorrow for part 2, the perfect straight razor shave. Take care.